In our last explainer, we dug into the theory of corporatism, one of history's most forbidden economic ideas. Well, now we're stepping out of the textbook and into the laboratory to see how it was actually put into practice. The goal, to build a state that was, in the words of philosopher Giovanni Gentili, a wholly spiritual creation. This is where the theory gets terrifyingly real.
Okay, let's just dive right into this, because the answer is going to challenge everything you think you know about the political spectrum. It suggests that these ideologies, which we're always told are polar opposites, were actually drawing from the exact same world-altering playbook.
To really get this experiment, you first have to understand the problem it claimed it was solving. And who better to explain a racket than a former crime boss, right? Michael Francise's point is that under liberal capitalism, powerful business interests can essentially capture the state, using lobbyists and money to write the rules in their own favor.
And look, this isn't just a hunch. A groundbreaking study by Professors Gillens and Page actually put a number on it. What they found was that for the bottom 90% of American earners, their odds of influencing policy are stuck at a flat 30%. Think about that for a second. It doesn't matter if an idea is massively popular with the public or not, their influence just flatlines.
And this right here, this is the core crisis that blew the doors wide open for the corporatist experiment. It's the conclusion from that same study. A powerful, wealthy elite, not the people, is truly controlling the state. This feeling that both democracy and capitalism were failing created a vacuum, and a radical new idea was about to rush in and fill it.
So this crisis led thinkers to hunt for a third way, something that wasn't free market capitalism, but also wasn't class war communism. They found it in an old idea they believed could finally unify the nation and serve the collective good over private greed.
And you know, this wasn't some new idea they just dreamed up overnight. Oh no, it has deep, deep roots, stretching all the way back to the occupational groups of ancient Rome and the powerful guilds of medieval Europe. The common thread through all of it? A vision of society not as a collection of competing individuals, but as one single organic, unified body, where every part works for the good of the whole.
Okay, this is absolutely crucial. While Marxism wanted to pour gasoline on the fire of class warfare, corporatism's goal was the exact opposite. It wanted to extinguish that fire by forcing the classes to collaborate. The state would step in as the ultimate, all-powerful referee, making sure that both labor and capital played for the same team, the nation.
All right, now we're entering the lab. The chief architect of Italian fascism was a philosopher named Giovanni Gentile. Some have even called him the Karl Marx of fascism. His core idea was that reality isn't a thing, it's a process created by the mind. This leads to the central pillar of fascism. The state isn't just a government, it's the objective manifestation of the collective consciousness. And just like that, words we thought we knew were completely redefined. Totalitarianism suddenly meant the state and the individual uniting as one. Positive liberty could mean being locked up for the greater good of the nation.
And here's the four-step blueprint for how they built the corporate state in Italy. First, you organize all workers and all employers into their own separate groups, called syndicates. Step 2, you merge these syndicates into larger bodies called corporations, one for each industry. Step 3, these corporations, under the watchful eye of the state, coordinate everything, wages, prices, you name it. The final step, the realization of justice among the classes.
And this is how it looked in the real world. To justify its total control, Mussolini's state rolled out massive social programs, organizations for leisure, welfare for mothers, state employment offices. But get this, and this is just mind-blowing, by 1934, Mussolini himself declared that three-quarters of Italian businesses were under state control. The Labor Charter of 1927 made all private production a matter of national concern. The trade-off was clear. You got security, but things like strikes? Completely forbidden. You lost your freedom.
Now let's jump over to Nazi Germany, where the whole idea of private property was just flipped completely on its head. It wasn't a right you were born with anymore. It became a privilege, a social function granted by the state, and it was totally conditional on its use for national goals. If you misused your property, it could be taken away, just like that. The Nazis had a terrifyingly effective process for this called Gleichschaltung, or synchronization. This was the systematic, ruthless subordination of every single part of society, every club, every organization, and especially every private business to the will of the Nazi Party and the state. Think about what that really means. The state didn't need to formally own a company to control it. It could dictate what was produced, how much, and at what price. Any businessmen who resisted were simply removed,
and their companies were seized. They became public companies in everything but name. This was total control, just without the title deeds.
Okay, now this is where the story takes a turn that is just unbelievable. You would think their sworn enemies, the communists, would have a totally different system, right? Well, you would be dead wrong. The line between these supposed opposites was about to get incredibly blurry.
You don't have to take my word for it. Even Mussolini, the founder of fascism, admitted it. He saw that a state that completely controls capitalism and a state that implements socialism, they end up in a shockingly similar place: total state domination of the economy.
I mean, just look at the evidence. In the Soviet Union, Lenin's new economic policy was basically a form of state capitalism that allowed private businesses to operate under state supervision to build up the nation. In China, Mao's United Front directly contradicted strict Marxist doctrine by endorsing class collaboration and allowing capitalists to function, all under the tight management of the communist state.
So the big takeaway here is just shocking. Whether they flew the flag of fascism or communism, whether they called it state capitalism or state socialism, the economic result was almost identical. The individual was subordinate, and the state had total control over the economy for the supposed national good.
You would think these radical, authoritarian ideas would be buried in the history books, right? A dark chapter that we've closed the book on. But what if the blueprint didn't disappear? What if it's making a comeback, just with a new name?
The language has changed. Today we hear terms like stakeholder capitalism. As the World Economic Forum describes it, this is the idea that private corporations are trustees of society, with a duty not just to their shareholders, but to all of society's social and environmental goals. And this infamous prediction from a 2016 World Economic Forum video, it paints a picture of the potential endgame that some critics fear, a future where private ownership is a relic and our lives are managed for us, all for the greater good.
So you had fascists, Nazis, and communists all using variations of the same playbook: total state control of the economy for the national good. But what if that blueprint crossed the Atlantic and influenced one of America's most famous presidents? In Part 3, we reveal the shocking American connection and how these ideas may be far closer to home than you ever imagined.